Hello everyone, welcome to True Crime. I'm Greg, host and curator of all the shows on the Indie Drop-In Network. Every week I find a true crime episode that I think you will love from an independent podcast creator. If you like what I do here, you can send me a tip at buymeacoffee.com/indie drop-in. Today's episode is from Serial Napper. Do you enjoy falling asleep listening to true crime podcasts? Then you'll love Serial Napper. Serial Napper is an international true crime podcast hosted by Canadian Nikki Young. If you like today's episode from Serial Napper, make sure you look in the show notes for links to subscribe. Enjoy the show.
Begin.
Hey everyone, my name is Nikki Young and this is Serial Napper, an international true crime podcast. Tonight we're talking about something a little bit different and it's a very sensitive subject, but I think it's more important than ever to keep it in our hearts and on our mind. Right off the bat here, I need to give you a trigger warning because the story I'm talking about involves sexual assault and suicide. This is the story of Rehtaeh Parsons, a 17-year-old girl from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada. She experienced something that no one should ever have to go through, an experience that would haunt her so deeply that she felt like there was no other way to escape the pain than to take her own life. Her story is not only heartbreaking, but disturbing, uncomfortable, and it's a huge warning to all parents that we need to better protect our children and be more accountable of our parenting. After listening, if you have teenagers or preteens at home, maybe it's time to open a dialogue with them about their own experiences, because knowing what's going on in their lives is half the battle. It's only then that we can take action as necessary. Rehtaeh Parsons, who also went by Ray, did not live a long life, but she did leave a legacy behind. She made a huge impact on everyone she met in the 17 years that she walked this planet. Rehtaeh was born on December 9th, 1995, to her parents Glenn Canning and Leah Parsons. The couple had actually broken up before she was born, but they did an incredible job of co-parenting and ensuring that Ray always knew she had the love and support from both her parents. Rehtaeh was named after her mother's niece Heather, as Rehtaeh was Heather spelled backwards. Leah Parsons had fallen in love with the name when she was only 13 years old, way before she was pregnant, and she just knew if she were to have a daughter, she would name her Rehtaeh. The name was as unique and beautiful as Ray would be, so it was quite fitting. Growing up, Rehtaeh lived full-time with her mother Leah in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, along with her two half-sisters, but her father lived close by, so she would spend a ton of time with him too. Although not traditional, they were still a very close family. As a little girl, Ray was quiet and shy. She loved anything and everything to do with nature, science, and animals. She was always a very cautious child, aware of her surroundings. She was sensitive, and she had so much empathy for those around her, for animals, for humans, for her friends and family. She loved deeply, and she felt deeply. Her mother at times worried that she might not be tough enough for this harsh world, but Ray was equally as strong-headed, resilient, and brave. When she was 15 years old, Ray started grade 10 at Cole Harbour District High School, and in the beginning, she really thrived there. She was a straight-A student, she made friends very quickly, and she was excited about the future. In her first month at school on September 26, 2011, she wrote the following journal entry. It said, "My favorite part of the year is learning new things. I really enjoy my visual arts class and English. I love making new friends and meeting new people. High school for me means learning to drive, making money, turning 16, and planning for the rest of my life. I'm very much looking forward to the rest of high school." Ray had her own cell phone, and like most teens her age, she was constantly on it, texting her friends, making plans. Her parents were just happy to see her breaking out of her shell a bit. Because like I said, while she was incredibly kind and friendly, she was also very shy and reserved. That is, of course, until you got to know her and she felt comfortable to share more of herself. I find I'm very much the same way now, but even more so in high school. I had this small network of friends, and unless I felt comfortable with you, I mostly just kept to myself. One of Ray's friends was a young lady named Lucy. One evening in November of 2011, Ray asked if she could go to a sleepover at Lucy's house, and her mother said that would be fine, but she wanted to speak with Lucy's mother first, just to confirm the plans. Leah called Lucy's mother, and everything seemed to check out, which, kudos to Leah for actually taking a minute to ensure that this was the plan and the parents were aware. But neither mother realized that Lucy and Ray had plans that evening to go to the home of a boy. The house was located in Eastern Passage, about 20 minutes away from where Ray lived by car. It was a fairly small gathering with 4 boys and Lucy and Ray, and these were boys that they had hung out with before, so they were familiar with them. The teens decided that they were going to do some shots of straight-up vodka, and a lot of them. One of the boys there said that he had taken around 11 shots himself, and that Ray had 8 shots of vodka. For a 15-year-old girl who weighed maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, this is a lot more alcohol than one can handle, and it hit her hard. There are a few versions of events of what would happen in the home that evening, and we will get into that later, but what we do know is that the teens were severely intoxicated and they were engaging in sexual activity. The following morning, Ray wakes up in the spare bedroom of the boys' home and she's alone. There's no sign of her friend Lucy anywhere, so she has to make her own way back to her home in Cole Harbour. Ray would later say that the events that happened that night were really fuzzy because she had been very intoxicated. Her mother noted that she was acting a bit off when she arrived home that morning, but her mom didn't know the extent of what might be troubling her. Now, a few days pass, and Rehtaeh begins to notice that there's this weird vibe at school. People are treating her differently, and she thinks they're whispering about her behind her back. Her friend Lucy, who she had gone to the party with, wasn't speaking to her, and then she finds out why. There was a very disgusting and compromising photo of her being shared around school and on social media. The photo was taken at the boys' house. It shows her naked from the waist down, with her head out a window because she's vomiting. There's a boy standing behind her, having sex with her, and he's smiling at the camera, giving a thumbs up. Her classmates are sharing this photo around and calling her the most horrible names. As if high school isn't hard enough, I can't imagine having such a graphic photo being seen by everyone in your school and then being used as a way to bully and berate you. So Ray, she's devastated. And then she gets a text message from the boy in the photo, the one who is pictured standing behind her in this very vulnerable moment, smiling and giving the thumbs up. The message says, "Are you okay with what happened?" And not really knowing how to respond, Ray plays it off with a response that says, "LOL, it's cool." Now, there is literally no way, just no way that it's cool. It would never be cool or okay for this to happen to anyone, but Ray doesn't want to make a big deal out of it because things are bad enough as is. She has no idea that this response she just gave would be used against her later. Ray leaves school that day in tears. When Leah, Ray's mom, arrives home from work later that day, she finds Rehtaeh sitting down, rocking back and forth, crying. Leah is able to get Ray to open up about what's happening. Thankfully, they have this really close, really open communication type relationship. Ray tells her about the photo and what she can remember from the night that the photo was taken. She says she's beginning to remember the events of the evening. There were a few different boys, and one came up behind her and was breathing on her neck while she was throwing up out the window, and he raped her. And now there's a photo of that very thing being passed around her high school in the community she had grown up in since she was 5 years old. Leah comforts her daughter, listening to the details of what happened, and reminds her that she did absolutely nothing to deserve this. Leah also wants consequences brought forward for the boys who did this, and together they go into the police station to file a report the following day. Rehtaeh tells the police about the boy and the assault, how she was far too intoxicated to consent, and that now the photo was being passed around the school. The police take down the details and they let her know that they'll follow up. But in the meantime, Rehtaeh has to continue to try to carry on, to go to school, all the while the bullying, the gossip, the rumors just continue to grow and swirl. She goes from being this bubbly teenager to anxious and depressed. All of her friends have cut her off completely for fear of being associated with her. And Cole Harbour, it's a small community, so gossip spreads fast. Everyone knows everyone else, and everyone knows each other's business. It was really difficult for Rehtaeh to get up each morning and continue to carry on, especially while she felt like a social pariah. Her father, Glenn, really struggled with what to do when he learned what had happened to his daughter. I'm pretty sure most fathers would have that knee-jerk reaction to show up at the boy's door and kick their ass. But of course, you can't actually do that. It doesn't help anything. So Glenn asks Rehtaeh what he can do to help her, to support her. And she tells him to just keep being her dad, because when she's with him, everything feels normal. It wasn't long before Leah gets a call from the police unit in charge of the investigation, and they ask Rehtaeh to come back in and make another statement. This time, she must do it alone without her mother, and it's videotaped. They question her for hours, and at one point, they ask her about that text exchange with the boy from the photo, where she responds with, "LOL, it's cool." They asked her to clarify what she meant by that because it contradicted her statement that she was assaulted. Rehtaeh remains firm in her statements, and when the interview is over, they tell her that they'll follow up if they have any updates. And while they believed that an investigation was ongoing, the bullying and the harassment of Rehtaeh did not let up. Approximately 4 months after the alleged sexual assault, she was admitted to the IWK Health Center, Halifax's children's hospital, because she was suicidal and she needed help with her mental health. She would stay 6 weeks in psychiatric care, and Rehtaeh would allege that during her stay there, she had been strip searched by 2 male workers. They were looking for razors and anything else that she might use to hurt herself. The hospital has denied these claims, but can you imagine how traumatic it would be to have to strip down in front of 2 men while you're in treatment for suicidal tendencies due to being sexually assaulted? When she was released from psychiatric care, Rehtaeh would switch schools. Actually, Rehtaeh would switch schools 4 times in a year and a half. From her original high school, Cole Harbour, over to Prince Andrew High in Dartmouth. This is where she met her best friend, Bryony Jollymore. The two were almost immediate friends, laughing over the fact that they both had very unique names. They had a lot in common, and they became inseparable. However, it wasn't long until that photo would get passed along to her new school. One day, a group of girls circled Rehtaeh and Bryony. They called Rehtaeh a slut and told her that they had seen the photos. One girl asked her if she liked it or if she got paid to take the photo. It felt to Rehtaeh like she would never be able to escape this picture. The rumors, the bullying, it was all over social media, and it would be shared across multiple networks of teens all over the Halifax area. She would switch schools again, this time to Citadel High School in Halifax, but then she would return to Prince Andrew in February of 2013. Constantly running from the events of what happened that evening and the photo that documented it all. As much as her mother tried to shield her and fix things, Leah had to watch her daughter suffer every day. And while the bullying continued, there was no progress being made on the legal case. It took 12 months since the initial report for an update in the case, but it was not what they had hoped for. The head of Special Investigations Unit called Leah and told her that there was not going to be any charges laid for child pornography or sexual assault. The "LOL, it's cool" text that Rehtaeh had responded with was going to be used against her, suggesting that it constitutes consent. Police say that there's insufficient evidence of an assault other than Rehtaeh's word. As for the child pornography charges, her face wasn't in the photo, so while everyone knew that it was Rehtaeh in the picture, there could be no charges brought forward. So I have not seen the photo, of course. I have no idea if it's on Google. I mean, just about everything is on Google, but I sure as hell hope not. And I wasn't going to go looking for it because to me that feels like violating Rehtaeh all over again. But from the description of what was in the photo, I can't understand why a sexual assault charge wouldn't be brought forward. Her head is out the window. She's throwing up because she's had so much alcohol to drink. A severely intoxicated person cannot consent. But it seems like this is the end of the legal road for Rehtaeh. And as difficult as it is, Rehtaeh really tries to just keep moving forward and to get back on her feet.
Hello, true crime fans. Greg here. The sponsor of today's show is NutriBullet. You heard me talk about the NutriBullet blender combo last week, but to refresh your memory, the NutriBullet blender combo includes a 1200 watt motor base, an easy twist extractor blade to attach to a 24 ounce handled cup and a 32 ounce cup, both with to-go lids, and a 64 ounce pitcher with a lid and a tamper. Now, we have put this blender to the test. Over the weekend, we made black bean burgers. I used the 32 ounce cup and popped in a can of black beans, half a cup of red onions, 2 tablespoons of cornmeal, and 2 tablespoons of water. I used the pulse to get everything chopped up, and then the medium speed for maybe 20 seconds. It basically turned into a thick hummus, and it was no problem at all for the NutriBullet. Then when I was done, I just rinsed the extractor blades with some soapy water and popped the cup in the dishwasher. If you don't have a NutriBullet in your kitchen, you are missing out. Don't settle for a blender that leaves chunks or only has a single pitcher or a single use. Go to NutriBullet.com and use promo code TrueCrime for 20% off your order. Once again, that's NutriBullet.com and use promo code TrueCrime for 20% off. Thanks to NutriBullet for supporting independent podcast creators.
It's around March 2013, about a year and a half since the photo was taken, and things seem to be improving in terms of Rehtaeh's overall mood and her disposition. She even has a boyfriend that she really likes. But we don't always know what's really going on in someone's head. Outwardly, they may be smiling and generally happy, but inside they could still really be struggling, and unfortunately this seemed to be the case with Rehtaeh. In April 2013, one evening Leah was in bed while Rehtaeh was out with a couple of her friends. Suddenly there's a knock on the door, and it's one of Rehtaeh's friends who says that Rehtaeh is upset and she's locked herself in the bathroom. Her mom goes to try to see if she can calm her down and get her to come out. Apparently she's had some sort of argument with a friend, and she may or may not have broken up with her boyfriend. There's a couple of different reasons that have been brought forward as to why she's so upset. But Leah is trying to calm her down. She knocks on the door, calling her name, and no one's answering. Leah says she feels weight on the door and thinks that Rehtaeh is pushing against it to keep her from coming in. But she keeps pushing, and she finally gets the door open, and there's Rehtaeh. She had hung herself in the bathroom. Rehtaeh is barely breathing, but she's alive. She's rushed to the hospital and put on life support. At first, her family is hopeful that she'll pull through, but Rehtaeh's body begins to shut down. And on April 7th, her parents make the difficult decision to take her off of life support. Rehtaeh has lost her battle with depression. Her family is, of course, devastated. They know that she's been through some really difficult times. She probably hadn't thought it through, but she had been struggling for quite some time with a sexual assault, and this was probably just the straw that broke the camel's back. Her mother is angry that nothing more was done with regards to the alleged assault and the intimate photo that was taken, plus all of the cyberbullying and harassment, all of which contributed to the steep decline in her mental health. On April 8th, the day after Rehtaeh has died, Leah turns to Facebook to fight for justice for her daughter. She was determined to be her voice now that Rehtaeh could no longer speak for herself. So she created a memorial page for Rehtaeh and put up a post on Facebook. It went viral. I'm going to read it to you now. It said, "This page is dedication to my wonderful daughter who was smart, beautiful, and full of life with a deep compassion to animals. The person Rehtaeh once was, all changed one dreaded night in November 2011. She went with a friend to another's home. In that home, she was raped by 4 young boys. One of those boys took a photo of her being raped and decided it would be fun to distribute the photo to everyone in Rehtaeh's school and community, where it quickly went viral. Because the boys already had a slut story, the victim of the rape, Rehtaeh, was considered a slut. This day changed the lives of our family forever. I stopped working that very day, and we have all been on this journey of emotional turmoil ever since. Rehtaeh was suddenly shunned by almost everyone she knew. The harassment was so bad, she had to move out of her own community to try to start anew in Halifax. She struggled emotionally with depression and anger. Her thoughts of suicide began, and fearing for her life, she placed herself in a hospital in an attempt to get help. She stayed there for almost 6 weeks. The bullying continued. Her friends were not supportive. She needed a friend, and eventually along the way, a few new friends came along, and a few old friends came forward. Ray then moved back to Dartmouth, always with a concern of what will be said about her, said to her. Again, she was the one raped. She was the victim, being victimized over and over again. 1 year later, the police conclude their investigation to state that it comes down to he said, she said. They believed the boys raped her, but the proof in a court of law was difficult to gather. The photo sent, well, Leah, that's a community issue. The bullying never stopped, but she learned to keep her head high and surrounded herself with the ones who truly cared. I have eternal gratitude for her friends Jenna, Dawid, and Mike for the past few months. They are the ones she leaned on for strength and courage. Just 2 weeks ago, she stopped smoking pot, started looking for work, and with the help of one of her teachers and a new therapist, she was making progress. When the calming effects of the pot subsided, her feelings of anger began to resurface and she was struggling. I will say that she has told me many times that, Mom, although I feel like killing myself, I could never do that to you because you would be devastated. This past week, she was having lots of mood swings, and her boyfriend Mike and Jenna wore the brunt of it. But Thursday, April 4th, she had a great day, made plans for the weekend, etc. Later that evening, she had an outburst, acted on impulse, and locked herself in the bathroom. And to stop any rumors from spreading, she acted on an impulse, but I truly, in my heart of heart, do not feel she meant to kill herself. By the time I broke into the bathroom, it was too late. My beautiful girl had hung herself and was rushed to the hospital where she remained on life support until last night. This page is to celebrate the Rehtaeh we knew and loved. One of Ray's pet peeves was that when someone passed away, suddenly they were liked and people cared. She wouldn't want people who bullied her, talked about her, put negative statuses about her over the past year, and sent awful messages to be on this page. I know who you are because every one message was a pain we shared together. There was not much that she didn't tell me or show me. People were so very cruel to her, so if you were one that felt it okay to bully someone in so much pain, stay away. Rehtaeh is gone today because of the 4 boys that thought that raping a 15-year-old girl was okay, and to distribute a photo to ruin her spirit and reputation would be fun. Secondly, all the bullying and messaging and harassment that never let up are also to blame. Lastly, the justice system failed her. Those are the people that took the life of my beautiful girl. Rehtaeh stood up for others, showed compassion to animals and people. She was an amazing artist. She made my life complete. When Rehtaeh was born, I dedicated everything to her and promised her the world. Others in this world took that away from her. When the local community read the post about what had happened to Rehtaeh and how the boys were never charged for what they did, there was a wave of shock and anger. There were massive protests, people demanding justice for Ray, holding signs with her photo, crying, wanting something to be done to bring about justice for her. And then, Anonymous picked up the story. Yes, Anonymous, the online hacker vigilante group, and they put out their own statement. They demanded that the police charge the boys, or else they were going to publicly release their names.
This is a statement from Anonymous. We engaged Oak Justice for Rehtaeh this morning in response to the suicide of Rehtaeh Parsons. Justice Minister Ross Landy says that it is important for Nova Scotians to have faith in their justice system. Mr. Landy, justice is in your hands. We can confirm the identities of 2 of the 4 alleged rapists. We are currently confirming a 3rd, and it is only a matter of time before the 4th is identified as well. Our demands are simple. We want the ends. RCMP to take immediate legal action against the individuals in question. We encourage you to act fast. If we were able to locate these boys within 2 hours, it will not be long before someone else finds them. We do not approve of vigilante justice as the media claims. That would mean we approve of violent actions against these rapists at the hands of an unruly mob. What we want is justice. And that's your job. So do it. The names of the rapists will be kept until it is apparent you have no intention of providing justice to Rehtaeh's family. Please be aware that there are other groups of Anons also attempting to uncover this information, and they may not to wish to wait at all. Better act fast. Be aware that we will be organizing large demonstrations outside of your headquarters. The rapists will be held accountable for their actions.
While much of the small community knew the names of the boys involved, there was a publication ban because they were minors at the time. But the police remained firm that they don't have any evidence to support a charge, and they aren't going to be opening the investigation again. However, around this time, Ray's mother Leah receives a text message from the boy in the photo. He says he wants to explain things from his side of the story. He recalls the events from his perspective that evening. It's not an apology, it's just an explanation. But one thing he does admit is that it is Rehtaeh in the photo. And now Leah has it in writing that it is her in the picture. Remember, the police weren't going to bring about child pornography charges because you couldn't see Rehtaeh's face in the photos. And now Leah had proof that it was Rehtaeh. A few months later, on August 8th, 2 men who were now 18 years old were charged in the case. One was charged with 2 counts of distributing child pornography, and the other was charged with making and distributing child pornography. However, police say that there's insufficient evidence for a rape charge. Both boys are found guilty of the child pornography charges, but neither of them faced jail time. And Rehtaeh's mother actually supported this decision. When she was asked about how she felt with the sentencing, she said, "There is nothing that will bring my daughter back. I can't go back in time, so what is justice? A jail cell? What would jail do to help the situation?" And it's true. I mean, at that point, I don't think that jail time would have really done anything except take them and turn them into 2 criminals. While their names have never been publicly released, the whole community knows who they are, and in my opinion, that might even be worse. But while a large part of the community supported Ray and was happy with these charges, although too damn late, there were still many that supported the boys while continuing to slut-shame Rehtaeh. Was Ray perfect? No. A lot of her social media referred to drug and alcohol use. There was a Facebook account created called Real Rehtaeh Parsons, where the profile picture was of Ray blowing smoke out of her mouth and holding a joint. It seemed as if they were using anything that they possibly could to shame Rehtaeh and continue to just put her down, even in death. But I don't understand how anyone can dispute that photo that was taken of her. It was disgusting. It's a woman vomiting out of a window. A woman vomiting out of a window cannot consent to sex. There was an internal review of how the case was handled by the Halifax police, and here's a couple of things that they found. In the first interview with Rehtaeh when she went into the police station, proper protocol wasn't followed. The officer unnecessarily interviewed her at length, and a social worker should have been present. So unfortunately, this meant that Ray had to be interviewed at length a second time, which is against proper protocol. The investigation also failed to address the cyberbullying that Rehtaeh had experienced. Police were unsuccessful in intervening to stop that circulation of the photo, when really they could have gotten a search warrant to obtain the photo from the boys' phones. At least that would have sent a message to anyone else sharing the photos. Also, the school that Rehtaeh attended apparently thwarted attempts by police to question the students, and the Crown gave the police improper advice regarding the potential child pornography charges. They were the ones that said no charges could be brought forward because you couldn't see her face, and this simply wasn't true. There were a lot of failures here, a lot of systems that really let Rehtaeh Parsons down. The school did not try to protect her or manage the photo distribution, and the police, well, they were slow to do much of anything. What those boys did to her, what the bullies did, and the failings of these institutions, they are the reason that Rehtaeh is no longer here today. But her mother, Leah, has refused to let her daughter's legacy go down like that. She's created the Rehtaeh Parsons Society, which is a nonprofit society focused on wellness through education, awareness, and prevention of sexualized violence and cyber abuse. They do outreaches to schools and youth groups. They also support individuals who are struggling from the trauma of sexualized violence and cyber harassment, all in Rehtaeh's name, and I'll have the link for that in my show notes. Now, remember at the beginning of tonight's story, I told you that there were varying versions of events from the night that the photo was taken. Well, there were. The friend that Ray had went to the boy's house with, her friend Lucy. Well, Lucy had told the police that she liked one of the boys who was there, and so she had told Ray not to do anything with him because she liked him. According to her, she got up to go outside for a smoke, and when she came back inside, she saw Ray in the same position as in the photo. She got angry at her and left her at the party. When she returned home without Rehtaeh, her mother demanded that she go back and get her because Rehtaeh was supposed to sleep there that night. Lucy said she went back to the house, but Ray wouldn't get up, so she left her there. Rehtaeh slept in the spare bedroom at the home. According to the boy that lived there, he didn't want her sleeping in his bed that night in case she threw up. Now, the boy who posed for the photo, he's always maintained that it was consensual. Even when he was in court for those child pornography charges, he said, "I will not live with the guilt of someone passing away, but I will live with the guilt of sending the picture. I have pled guilty to distributing child pornography, not a sexual assault. I never played a part in the bullying of Rehtaeh, nor would I." According to him, at no time did he believe that she was so drunk she didn't know what she was doing or that she wasn't consenting. Which, in my opinion, might be believable if we didn't have photo proof that she was vomiting out the window because she was so intoxicated. And if he hadn't admitted that he had her sleep alone in the spare room because he didn't want her vomiting in his bed. Christy Blatchford from the National Post is the one that conducted this interview where this guy shares his version of events. If you give it a Google, if you care to read the rest of the story, I'm sure you can find it. But personally, I believe that the proof is in the photo, and if they aren't willing to acknowledge that, then there's really no more to know. I know this case was a bit different than the usual stories that I cover, but I felt it was really important. Things like this have unfortunately always happened, but with the internet and social media now being what it is, it just adds this extra layer of trauma that one might experience. So, talk to your teens, keep the dialogue open, monitor what they're doing, make sure your boys understand consent, and make sure your girls stay safe. That's it for me tonight. If you want to reach out, you can find me on Facebook at Serial Napper. You can also search for me on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check me out on Twitter at serial_napper, or I'm on YouTube, Nikki Young, Serial Napper. That's all one word. If you'd like more ad-free, exclusive content, as well as supplemental documents and details on all the cases I cover, join my Patreon page at patreon.com/serialnapper. Until next time, stay safe, stay inspired. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to True Crime by Indie Drop-In. If you would like your show featured, reach out to us at Indie Drop-In on all social media or go to indiedropin.com. See you next time.